Okay, perfect. I can see the people are successfully joining, but we're gonna give it a couple of minutes for everyone to just come along here. And before we begin, for those who are already here, I would like to ask a little question for you guys. If you could receive a daily email from any character or person, who would it be and why? Now, this could be both fictional, both real, both alive or dead, or whichever. What character would it be and why would it be that specific person? For me, I don't exactly know. Like I don't follow pop culture all that much, but it would be interesting to see what Einstein has to say, I suppose. So far, I'm not seeing any responses, and I think that people are still joining in. Yeah, I can see from each of my children. Teresa, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. I'm not even gonna ask why. That's just amazing. Good morning, Camille. Sorry, Camilla. I think that's how it's pronounced. Good day, good morning, everyone. I don't see a lot of responses from the question. Tough question. Of course it is. Okay, anyways, I think we got most of the people here already. Yes, it appears that we do. So without further ado, let's get into the main topic here. It's mastering the basics, building your first email. Where we'll go through the basics. We'll try not to get into any advanced stuff. It is pretty tough, to be honest, not to do it and to just simplify things very much. We're going to try to keep it brief. We're going to try to keep it informative, and let's get into it. So I will be both your host and your presenter today. I'm Arnas, the self-proclaimed email guru. And we're going to cover a couple of things to know before we begin. So the workshop is being recorded right about now, and the recording will be available to you shortly. You will receive an email with the link to it in a couple of days, and it will be available on our YouTube page. So if you have any questions at any point during this webinar, make sure to click over here somewhere beneath me and in the Q&A tab and ask the questions there. We have people, our wonderful people working in the background trying to get to each and every question. So here's the question. Why are we doing this? Well, we constantly receive these requests of people asking, I need all the real ABCs, started from A, ending with Z. Like every step needs to be covered. And this is the part that we're going to try to cover with the topic of email, specifically in this case. We're gonna give it to you. So what we're gonna cover is, first of all, a live demo. We're gonna try to understand the email structure, understand the principles of choosing the right colors and fonts and using images effectively, optimizing layout and padding, and common mistakes and how you could avoid them. I know it might sound a little bit complex, but trust me, I'm gonna try to keep it pretty simple-tongued, I'd say that much, and not to get into any advanced stuff. I hope it's going to be understandable, and let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow at any given point. And then we're going to recap everything that we learned, and then we're going to cover some questions that we have received before this presentation. And if we have any time left, I might check it out on our live presentation and maybe get some of the answers live. So without further ado, let's get into the demo. So first of all, what we're going to start with is just how to create an email in the first place. And this is the amazing part. You click on create an email. I'm going to get to it, why it's amazing later on. And you can just create a subject line. Because this is a test, I'm not going to get it too in detail, but we're going to try to use AI to create the subject line. So for example, 40% off, limited time. These are the keywords that we're going to use. I actually misspelled it. I wonder what it's going to use. It actually corrected it. Perfect. So I'm going to choose this subject line and choose it. Sender's name, let's keep it as is. And pre-header, this is the content that goes over here, right next to the subject line. And this is optional. If you just keep it blank, it's just gonna pre-fill it with the content from the email itself, but we can just say discount inside, for example. Campaign name, this is just for internal use. If you leave it blank, it's just gonna take the subject line that you're gonna use. So this is what I'm gonna do. And this is why it's amazing, because we have a lot of templates that use the best practices of email design already. So if you don't really know a lot about email design and you're too afraid to learn something new or just want a safe bet is these templates right here. They follow the best practices of both color, fonts, everything else that you could use. And I'm going to use this birthday one, for example, to show you what it looks like. Short, sweet, looks amazing. So this is why it's an amazing thing. So now that we're inside the email builder, we need to understand the email structure. And there are 4 building blocks that make the email. I would like to use a real life example. Say, I cannot really show you this, but there's a table underneath me. And that would be the background that you see right over here. It's currently the color of light gray, I would say. This is the background. Now, this sheet of paper that goes on top of the table, that is the canvas that we're going to use. This is this entire thing that your content goes to. And then we also have sticky notes, which I don't have on me right now, but the sticky notes go on top of the paper, and those are the layouts. And you can see the layouts. Well, actually, this is a couple of layouts, I think. This whole section is a single layout. This one on top is a different layout. These are the blocks that go on top of the canvas to separate each section. And then last thing we have, on the sticky notes, we write something, we draw something, we add images or text on top of these blocks, and then we can write something. This is the structure of the email. So again, the background right here, the canvas, this entire email that the content goes on top of. The layouts are these little blocks on top of the canvas. And then we have each individual element. This is an element, this is an element, this is an element. Everything is an element. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to drop those in the Q&A because we're kind of short on time. I'm trying to keep it brief. So why structure matters. A well-structured email enhances readability, engagement, and conversions. So if we don't have any questions over here, can you change the background color? Absolutely, I can. I'm going to do this real quick. Background image. You can edit the background image as well. You can add an image there, or you could just change the color of it. So if you want to change it, oh, sorry. Need to move things around a little bit. Background, there you go. Sorry about that. I can change the canvas color or the background color. So for the background, I'm going to choose this. I can choose this or a green one, whichever works. Right now it looks kind of ugly, understandable, but this is how you would do it. Click anywhere or in the background specifically, click background, and then change the background color. Okay, so let's move on to the right colors and fonts. And this is the fun part. I would like to show you a bad example of font and color usage. Immediately when we jump in, it's kind of painful to look at for multiple reasons. It was painful for me to create this, but I just wanted to emphasize what a bad design looks like. I'm going to show you the rest of it, see how the fonts keep changing, how the colors are inconsistent, and there's a lot of them. Well, let's get into some general rules. What you should do is stick to 1 to 3 colors instead and ensure high contrast for readability. That means that the contrast between the text and the background should be high enough to increase the readability. For this part, it's kind of still hard to read because, first of all, the text is kind of small and the contrast between them is not exactly great. And I'm going to show you how you can check it. This is a contrast checker, which I have just dropped in the chat that you could use for on your own. I'm going to take the background color that we see here. This is a hex code. You don't really need to understand how it works. Just know that this represents a color in digital space. You just copy this whole thing and paste it in the background, and you can see it immediately changes. And as for the foreground, this could be a text that we're using, which in this case is perfectly pitch black. So that is the hex value for blackness. And as you can see, the contrast ratio is 3.68 to 1. Ideally, what you want to do is go for anything above 4.5, because otherwise this is looking not that great. There's also these kinds of tests. You don't really need to understand what these letters stand for. I don't understand as well, to be fair. And what you want to see is passes all across the board. Now, what you can do is increase the lightness of the background until you pass the test. As you can see, the text is a lot more readable now. So you have passed the test and your contrast ratio is 12.47. So what you can do instead is take this hex value and just paste it over here. And the text is a lot more readable now. So this is the contrast checker. Make sure to use it all the time. It's amazing. And another principle regarding colors is use your branded colors. Of course, what I've showed right now might not correlate with your brand colors. Your brand colors should already be contrasty between each other. And they usually separate each section in your email. Now, why is it important? Because when people receive your email, they're going to scan it. They're going to scan it first. They're going to understand the principles. They're going to gaze at something that catches their attention. And what should catch their attention is your colors. You need to have your own branded colors because people need to immediately recognize that this is an email from you specifically, instead of just this gargle of colors all around without any clear meaning. So that's about it regarding colors. Let's talk about fonts for a second. Now, fonts is a bit of a difficult topic, to be fair. Everything is color theory, typography, those are difficult topics. But in a broad sense, there are two types of fonts. There are serif fonts, like Times New Roman or Georgia, that convey professionalism and trustworthiness. And there are sans serif fonts, Arial, Helvetica, and they show a modern and clean look. Now, how do you differentiate these two fonts? For example, let's look over here. This would be the sans serif font. Serif font. These little lines or strokes at the edges of each letter indicate that this is a serif font. And as for the sans serif, this would be an example of that. There are no lines at the edges of those. I could try to zoom in. Yeah, there you go. I can try to zoom in. You can see these little twisty thingamajigs all around the edges of each letter. That would indicate a serif font. Sans serif does not have any of those. Now, it's important to use 1 to 2 fonts in your emails. Of course, if you are more advanced, you can use more, but they need to be justified. The general rule is stick to a couple of fonts. Now, you can use serif fonts and sans serif fonts at the same email, but again, the safer bet would be using a single family instead. Not a single family, but a single type. For example, 2 serif fonts or 2 sans serif fonts, just to maintain that consistency. If your brand is friendly, very modern, very youthful, I would go with a sans serif font because it's more clean, it's cleaner, it's more modern, it's just a bit more friendly looking. Now, if you're a jewelry brand, for example, or a beauty brand, or you're selling B2B products, I would probably go with a serif font because that conveys a bit more professional environment, the professionalism, the trustworthiness, the good stuff. So it's really important to choose, to understand, first of all, the differences between these two fonts and then make a choice on your own. Now that we got that out of the way, and if there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A tab. Let's move on to the images. And I also have a bad image design right here. Well, it's not exactly bad. Let me just do that real quick to make it worse. Perfect. So why images matter? They increase engagement, and it's important to retain that engagement because it's hard enough to get people to click on your emails. It's even harder to maintain that attention. So you need something that could grab their attention and keep it for an extended period of time. So hero images grab attention. For example, this is not an ideal example of that, but a hero image could be something like this. It's a big image that conveys something It displays your product that you want to promote. It displays some crazy things happening, something that grabs attention and keeps it. And it should always be at the top of the email, maybe be beneath the header, but always at the top, because that is where a lot of your people are going to drop off. They open the email, they see that hero image, and they need to be captivated by it. It needs to grab their attention, because otherwise they're just going to close this email and just never think about it again. So it's important to keep that. Now, you notice that I changed the image, right? And what I did is I changed the image from being a PNG and JPEG. Now, the difference between these two is pretty similar, pretty easy, I'm sorry. The PNG contains background information. That means that the image itself can be transparent and display things behind it. Like, for example, if I was a PNG, the background could just still be displayed. Otherwise, I would just have a white block around me or something. Imagine me as a PNG and the background being the background. So let me show you. This is a JPEG because the squiggly lines are blue and the background is red. But I can just still display the background that's behind it by selecting this PNG. And now you can see the difference. The squiggly lines are still there, they're blue, but the background information is gone. You can see what's behind it. And that is the difference between PNGs and JPEGs. You can use both of them, but if I were to start off my email marketing journey, I would stick with PNGs. They are a bit more heavy, but they look a lot better. Additionally, what's important to understand is these images, they're being hosted somewhere. They're somewhere on the internet and they need to be taken. So there's an image and your email needs it, so it takes it. But imagine if that thing no longer exists and the email tries to take that image that no longer exists. It's not there. What happens then? It displays nothing, right? There is no image. So what it can help is to include an alt text on all of your images. For example, just describe what the image is about. In this case, alt text is wavy texture. So if the image hosting service would go and just be disabled for a second, instead of just displaying nothing, it would show a wavy texture, alternative text. Is that what it translates to? Okay, I'll get back to you, John, just in a second, maybe later on during the Q&A section. So about the images moving forward, where do you create those? Where do you get them? Where do you source them, right? So if you want to make images, say, for example, you're selling products, right? You take a photo of that product, you display it. You have the full rights to that image. It's important to not, it's a very bad practice to just go Google something and just take it and put it in the email. It's not good, not good. If you want to create some motion graphics, for example, you could use certain applications. They do require a little bit of knowledge, so a good place to start would be probably Canva. Canva has a lot of templates too, and it's easy to pick up for people who understand design or don't understand design. The templates are plentiful and there's lots of variables over there that you could just take and use in your emails. Another thing could be Figma if you're a bit more advanced. Now, this is a platform that's not designed for this specific thing, but it could also be beneficial and it's also free. Now, if you're used to Photoshop, totally, that's an amazing product, amazing place to create your visuals, Photoshop, Illustrator, stuff like that. But if you don't have a license to it right now, what you could instead use is Photopea, Pexels, not Pexels, Pixlr, or yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a lot of alternatives on the internet. If you take a look, you can definitely find it. But if you're looking for stock footage of some people or something, Shutterstock, Getty Images, Adobe Stock are your go-tos specifically. Now, I did mention Pexels, and Pexels is a stock footage site as well, and it's a free one. So you can just take the images from there. As far as I understand, and I've read their license, I think you can just take their images and use them for marketing purposes too. So there's a lot of images, a lot of image hosting sites, a lot of stock footage sites, and I might drop them in the chat, but I don't really have time for that right now. I'm sorry. Uh, and that will be all from the images for now. Let's go to optimizing layout and padding. Again, I have a very ugly email for you to show. Now, the top looks, it's okay-ish, right? But if we scroll down a little bit more, you notice the pain. You notice, yeah, it's not a, something feels off, doesn't it? So there's a lot of things that are off. For example, if we take this button, you can't really even tell that this is a button because it doesn't have the spacing in between the elements. These lines across like touch the edges of the other section, which makes it look kind of painful. Because imagine yourself in this scenario. You're in an elevator and there's a lot of people there. It's cramped. It's supposed to house 12 people. There's 20 now, right? Everyone's just everyone's up in your face. They're breathing down your neck and someone's leg is touching your leg. It's just uncomfortable. And that is the same metaphor that I would like to use on my email designs as well. There are no clear rules, but you need to give specific all the elements a little bit of breathing room because they also want to have their own personal space. So that would be the rule for padding. Also, it's very important to keep it consistent across the board because let's like take a look over here. The top goes down like this. As I mentioned again, people scan your content first and they scan it from top to bottom, from left to right, right? So let's take this dot and let's go down. I am scanning the email right now. There's this, there's this, there's this. And it's kind of hard to keep up because, for example, this is aligned to the center. It makes it harder for me to grab onto this place and start reading if I want to read it. I'm scanning it and there are content gaps in between. I'm trying to explain it in a simple way. I'm not exactly sure how I'm successfully doing that, but it's important to keep the left padding, for example, 24 pixels, and keep it like that all across the board. Now, another thing is alignment. So I would never do this, for example. I would never align to the right. I don't really understand the purpose. I don't see why you would do that. Instead, what you should do is align the text or any elements to the center, or even more ideally to the left, because as I mentioned, it's easier to scan the content this way. Now you can see the spacing here is also different from here, which kind of feels off. So proper padding prevents a cluttered look because padding is less of a rule book, it's more of a feeling. It feels cramped, so it is cramped. And elements need breathing room for readability. So as I mentioned, and I once again repeat, people are scanning your emails. They're scanning it from top to bottom, from left to right. And what's very important to do before we go any further is once you're done, once you have all these things down and you are ready to send your email, no, you're not. You have not done one single thing, is to preview and test your emails. So if you click on this button, I'm going to show it again. Click on this button, preview and test. You are taken to this page where you can preview what your email would look like on desktop and mobile devices. So this is the desktop view, and this is the mobile view. If you click over here, you can also see the mobile view. Now, this actually looks quite decent, well, apart from the padding, but I will get back to the mobile preview in just a second, I believe. So what's the best way to ensure your padding is consistent? So use a single column layouts for simplicity. Now, I didn't touch on layouts all that much, but if you want to add them, you can add multiple columns in a single row. For example, you can have two columns, right? I'm gonna just paste it right over here. and I can add two separate images on both of the sides. It's good, it works, but I think for the beginners, I would recommend sticking to a single layout instead. So it looks like this. All the content is in a single column instead because it helps with readability, it helps keep things consistent, and it doesn't distract you from what is happening on the screen. As I mentioned, it's very important to keep that retention inside your email as well as getting the attention in the first place with your subject line. Arrange CTA buttons at key points. So that's important. There are no real CTAs here. What's a good practice is to include a single main CTA. And a CTA is a call to action, which usually comes in the form of a button. So there are three buttons in this case, which is okay, it can happen, but what would be the best option is to include a massive button right over here. Of course, the spacing, the padding, everything is awful here, but this is essentially what it would look like. You have this hero image. I'm just going to get rid of these so they don't distract us. So you have this hero image that grabs attention, and then you're directing people to your so that they could achieve your goal. If your goal is to sell, Shop Now would work best. And that is a single button that would attract most of the attention because not a lot of people are going to scroll down. They're going to see this, they're going to look at the main points maybe, and then what you want them to do is to click a button and direct them to a certain goal, the goal that you're trying to achieve. So that would be the ideal use case. And elements like buttons and links should be easily clickable. So of course, easily clickable means that essentially you want to have them pretty big. If it looks like this, maybe we can also expand the top and bottom padding, for example, so that text could have a little bit more breathing room inside the button as well. So yeah, that would be all from the optimizing layout and padding. Still not seeing a lot of questions in the Q&A tab. Make sure to use that if you have any. So now what we're going to do is get over some common mistakes and how you could avoid them. Too many colors and fonts. That's a big one, and that's a common one. It's always best to just keep things simple. Don't overthink things. If you want to sell your product, do exactly that. Display it at the top of the email, the image that you of the product that you want to sell. Direct them with a single button and just take your users there. Don't overthink it. Don't over pasteurize it, as I would say, and just keep it simple. Keep it simple and branded. Yeah. So overloaded content. Less is always more in most cases, because as I mentioned multiple times now, that it's important to keep their attention on your emails as well. You don't want people to just go ahead and scan things. You also want to keep them engaged and keep them reading, keep them on the email, but not for too long. Your main goal is probably to get them to click, right? So it needs to be enticing and it needs to be short and sweet because people don't have a lot of time. They spend seconds on your email, definitely seconds, not anymore. No clear CTA. Always guide your users toward one main action. Now, as I said, you could have multiple buttons. That's essentially cross-selling, I would say. So keep the top of the email for the main purpose of the email is to promote your product, to promote your new releases or something. And then at the bottom, you could also include some optional picks, like popular products that we have, something that you might be interested in, stuff like that. But the main point is at the top. And no preview testing. Always send test emails before you launch your campaign because it might look good, but if you open it on mobile, it might have a different look. So mobile users take a lot. Well, that's how I'm going to say. Most of the people open their emails on mobile, and that is a market that you cannot ignore. That is a big percentage of your viewership, and this is what you should also pay attention to. So always preview your emails both on desktop and on mobile. And that would be pretty much all regarding the demo session. Now, let's quickly recap everything that we learned. Understand the email structure. As I mentioned, table is the background, a piece of paper is the canvas, layouts are these building blocks that come on top of it, or sticky notes, and elements are everything that you doodle on those sticky notes, like images, text, or anything else that you put on it. Why structure matters: a well-structured email enhances readability, engagement, and conversions. Now, let's choose the right colors and fonts. So the color theory. Stick to 1 to 3 primary colors. You don't want to make your email look like a kindergarten because the adults will be reading those emails, not kids. Ensure high contrast for readability. Example, black text on white background is 21:1, which is the maximum ratio that you can have. And of course, use brand colors to maintain identity. You want your people, your readers to understand that this email is coming from you and you only. That's why it's important. Now, font selection. This is amazing because I can specifically show which sections to look at. Serif fonts have these little lines on the edges, but sans serif fonts do not have them. They're a bit easier to read and they convey a clean and modern look. So you should stick to 1 to 2 families for consistency. And using images effectively. So why images matter: increases engagement, hero images grab attention. As I mentioned, top art is where most of your openers are gonna be at. Not a lot of people scroll down all the way. So you need to grab their attention and keep them engaged. Icons and infographics clarify messaging. So if you want to include any of that, this would be a great place to put it. Use PNGs for transparent backgrounds and always include alt text for accessibility. Now, as for the tools, ooh, there's a lot of those. Yeah, I'm just not gonna drop them probably, but I can mention them once again. Stock footage. So that would be Shutterstock, Getty Images, Adobe Stock, and if you're looking for a free alternative, pexels.com. Now, if you're looking to create any visuals for your site, you could use Canva, you could use Photopea, you could use Pixel R, or you could use Adobe products like Photoshop and Illustrator, for example. There's a lot of options out there. You just need to pick one, but they might be kind of hard to comprehend at first. But in time, anything is possible. So let's move on to the next one: optimizing layout and padding. So spacing matters. Proper padding prevents a cluttered look. That's what I'm saying. Cluttered look. It just looks crammed. Elements need breathing room for readability. Left to right, top to bottom scanning. Always keep this in mind because people are scanning your emails first and then maybe reading them as well. So use single column layouts for simplicity. Elements like buttons and links should be easily clickable, and preview your email before sending. Always, always, always do that. You always better to keep it safe rather to be sorry later on. So common mistakes and how to avoid them. Oh, wow. Our design team really outdid themselves with this one. So too many colors and fonts, always keep it simple and branded. Overloaded content, less is always more. If you have an option to concise your messaging into a smaller piece of content, always do that because people don't have a lot of time and any second is as important. No clear CTA, always guide users toward action, and no preview testing. Always send test emails before launch. Always do that. Oh, and that would be all regarding the main part. Now let's get into the Q&A section where we have the first question: how can I optimize my email for mobile devices? Right. I think maybe I could just drop back into the product and show you. Yeah, let's go with this. And let's create another layout. Yep. Let's add images here, and I'm gonna add some random ones. Let's click on the image, select file, and I'm gonna add this little girl first. And I'm gonna add this lady next. Now, we have this layout, right? On the desktop, it looks kind of okay, but imagine this on a smaller screen. The images would look too tiny to even make out, right? So what you can do is go into preview and test. Well, I'm going to show you one thing. As you can see, the images are not side by side, top and bottom. And let me tell you what's happening here. If we click on this layout and we click on mobile stacking, it is enabled by default. So Omnisend does that automatically for you. If the layout includes more than one column, then it's going to stack them one on top of each other for better readability on mobile devices. So in some cases that might not be useful to you, you can just turn it off, but this is enabled by default, and this is what I would stick with, to be honest. Now, another thing, if it looks just overall bad on mobile and you don't really know why, it's just not a great fit and it doesn't, and these are not like essential elements, you could just click on the layout, scroll down over here, and adjust the visibility on devices. Now, by default, these are enabled on all devices, but you can just select desktop only. Now, let's go into the preview and test. As you can see, this is still available on desktop, but on mobile, it's gone. So that would be one way to optimize your emails for mobile devices. Now, another thing, which I wasn't really planning on mentioning, but I think it's a good place to start. You can also preview your messages in dark mode because a lot of users are using dark mode. I don't have the exact statistics about that, but you can also preview your email on that and see what it would look like. If it feels a little bit off, you can always make the adjustments to either colors, to the font size, or anything else in between. So I hope that answers this question. Let's move on to the next one. Can I add personalized product recommendations in my email? Again, let's switch back to the product. And of course you can. You can go to the quick add menu and select the product recommender. You place it in here, and what you can do is select products to recommend. Now, these are separate categories, and you can select best-selling products, recently added products, and most viewed products. These are the personalizations that you can choose. Now, these are the store-wide ones because you can only see the data from the store itself. What's the best-selling thing? What's the most recent thing? Stuff like that. And I don't want to get into the advanced category, but yeah, I'm just not going to show it, but I'm just going to mention that in automations, there are more personalization options that are more personal. For example, if a person views certain products from a certain category, you can select to offer them a similar product to those that he is already looking at. Or you can just select the ones that he has already viewed and recommend those products. Otherwise, what you can do is product listing, add that, and then just pick very specific products that you want to promote. Maybe your inventory is full and you need to get rid of some unused stock. Well, you can do it just like that. Just include a product listing and select specific products that you want to recommend. Otherwise, you can use the product recommender for more dynamic changes. Now, I know it looks blank and empty at the moment, but you can be sure that it would be filled out when you're sending it to your customers. Okay, let's go to the next question. What's the ideal length and layout for better engagement? Well, this is a very difficult question because it really depends. There's no clear answer here. But as I mentioned before, whenever possible, you should try to keep things brief. And when I'm saying brief, you should keep them about 50 to 120 words brief. Contain a single clear CTA, as I mentioned, and a single column layout for better readability and just easier, because it's easier to scan. So there is no clear answer. What it's going to come down to is testing. Every audience is different. Every brand is different, and you can only tell what really works for you by doing the testing yourself. Send a bunch of campaigns, gather the insights, and then make adjustments as necessary. I cannot really provide you with a clear answer here, and sadly. So as for the next one, I have a first draft, but I don't know where to go to source a background image or find images from my email. So as I mentioned, stock footage sites like Shutterstock, Getty Images, Adobe Stock, stuff like that. This is where you can source some stock images. If you're looking for graphic design, Canva is probably your best bet. Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, things like that. Never go to YouTube image search and then just look for something there and just yoink it from there. You copyright is a law and you need to abide by it. I'll say that much. So that will be all from the Q&A side as far as I can see. Maybe we have some questions that I could answer in the chat or the Q&A tab, because I see that we still have a couple of minutes left. Layouts for do you suggest? If I'm looking to test different campaign layouts, how many campaigns do you suggest to run before the decent data? Now this is a bit of an advanced topic, I would say. But Omnisend offers A/B testing, so you can compare both versions and see which one would perform the best. So if you want to make some small adjustments, like as you mentioned, layouts, right? So you can adjust the layout of one version and then keep it consistent on the other one and see which one would result in better results. I kind of said results multiple times, but that would be the best option, I would say. Okay, so it looks like we're kind of running out of time. That was I I ran through a lot of those, and I hope I was clear about things. If I wasn't, I apologize for that, and I will try to do better next time. But I hope this was informative. So, guys, some closing words before I go. The webinar is being recorded, as I mentioned, and you will be receiving the recording very soon. But in the meantime, if you're looking for some additional information, a lot of this information was based on the video that we did right here. I just dropped it in the chat. If you want to take a look at it, feel free to do so. It's a pretty good beginner course to understand the basics of email design, and it's just a good reminder. That will be all. So that will be all, everyone. Thank you for sticking by. That was a pleasure to provide this feedback to you guys and this information. And I hope you're gonna take something out of this presentation back home. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much and happy marketing.